Okay. Good morning. Welcome to the hearing of the House Committee on Water and Land. Today is February 18th, Thursday, 8:30 a.m., conference room 430, the state capitol. Appreciate all you members being here today. Thank you. This will be our last hearing before our first lateral deadline to pass bills onto their final committee if they have more than one committee to which they are referred. Before we start the hearing today, I'd like to let people know who are here to provide testimony that in order to allow as many people to testify as possible, there will be a 2-minute time limit per testifier. Because morning hearings must adjourn prior to the noon floor session, not all testifiers may have the opportunity to testify. In that event, please know that your written testimony has been considered by the committee. They all have it so they can read it and study it. Please keep yourself muted and your video off while waiting to testify and after your testimony is complete. The Zoom chat function will allow you to chat with the technical staff only. Please use the chat only for technical issues. If you are disconnected unexpectedly, you may attempt to rejoin the meeting. If disconnected while presenting testimony, you may be allowed to continue if time permits. Please note that the House is not responsible for any bad internet connections on the testifier's end. In the event of a catastrophic network failure, it may be necessary to reschedule the hearing or schedule a meeting for decision-making. In that case, an appropriate notice will be posted. Please maintain decorum and refrain from profanity or uncivil behavior. Such behavior may be grounds for removal from the hearing without the ability to rejoin. Thank you very much for that, members. Let us begin our hearing today. We have our first measure is HB 1028, relating to the Coquet State Park Advisory Council. We have received testimony in support from Kurt Cottrell at DLNR. Mr. Cottrell, if you're available, the floor is yours. Please proceed.
Mahalo, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Kurt Cottrell, Administrator for the Division of State Parks. And we're in strong support of this administrative measure. Just a little bit of color. Coquet is one of our first state parks. It was created in 1952. So she's 69 years old. Next year hits 70. The master plan was created and completed like in 2015, and we really appreciate all of the input and effort and passionate engagement with the Coquet Advisory Council. Subsequent to that, with the plan being approved, there's been a variety of challenges to fill vacancies and get people appointed and whatnot. And as we move into the new normal of how we do community engagement that we've learned from COVID, it's, I think, pertinent that we're never going to disengage, and we want to continue engagement with the community, particularly in these very venerated park units. And we have the Coquet Leaseholders Association, which has a 30-year tenure, along with Huiolaka, which I think is roughly around the same, if not a little older, topside. So our commitment is to re-engage and continue to engage, but the static function of a appointed body with so many people and all of the elements of rigidity just don't work in this day and age when we have digital platforms for broader and more nimble community engagement. So, with that, we're still committed and eager to engage with the public on whatever's going to happen in the future of Coquet. And the Advisory Council actually had additional kuleana associated with that. So we're just going to reboot and move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Next, we have testimony in support from Clayton Kubo. Mr. Kubo, if you're available, please proceed.
Yeah, how's it going, Raptornis? In support, but just got to make sure that state parks listen to all users, yeah, not only groups or nonprofits. Mahalo for letting me testify. Aloha.
Certainly. Thank you very much, Mr. Kubo. Always good to see you. Members, that's all the testimony we've received. Do you have any questions for testifiers? Representative Morikawa.
Thank you, Chair. For DLNR, Kurt,
Hey, good morning, Rep.
good morning. I know that I did try at one point to kind of dissolve this group also because after the master plan was put into place, it really wasn't necessary. But I had suggested putting together a community group on Kauai so we wouldn't have to deal with the travel expenses. Now, I just want to make sure that that is still possible because that has to be hunters, people who are cabin related issues, yeah?
Yep.
And of course, people who use the trails and whatnot. So I really need that commitment from you so we can make sure that everyone has a voice at the table.
No, thanks for the comment. We agree 100%. I think it's really just how we restructure and make these meetings more nimble, and using the digital media platforms, it will really broaden our engagement greater than whatever number of slots we had appointed by the Senate and that. And this is happening statewide. As you probably know, we have the same situation at Haena. And we just completed our master plan EIS for Kealakekua Bay State Historic Park. And one of the elements of that master plan is we're creating, almost in parallel with Haena, a cultural ohana to advise us due to the significant cultural values of Kealakekua. So it's in the game plan, but we're doing it on a less formal basis, moving forward. And so this is kind of a housekeeping measure to get rid of, as you tried to do, just kind of the old method as we engage in a new way to talk to our community and work with them. So we commit.
Great. And let's make sure we get that message out there to the people. Thank you.
Okay, mahalo.
Thank you, Representative. Any other questions for our testifiers? Seeing none, let's move on to our next measure. House Bill 1029, relating to living park planning councils. We have testimony and support from Mr. Kurt Cottrell at DLNR. Mr. Cottrell, please proceed.
Good morning. Thank you again for this opportunity. While the title is relating to living park councils, there's only one living park in the state that fits this criteria, and that's Ahupua'a o Kahana State Park. And the testimony speaks for itself. There was a 10-year effort, over 80 meetings, but due to the embedded complexity of managing a park unit, which is a single giant ahupua'a owned entirely by the state, with an embedded residential community of lessees, consensus is virtually unattainable. And so for a community-based planning group, they just bit off more than they could chew. And so again, as we try to clean up the statutes, moving forward, we hired a planner, and the testimony explains the 3 entrenched challenges. So Kahana will remain a work in progress, at this point in time. But with that, we stand on our testimony.
Thank you very much. Members, that's all the testimony we've received. Any questions for Mr. Cottrell? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next measure. Thank you. House Bill 1030, relating to the Aquatic Life and Wildlife Advisory Committees. We have received testimony and support from Brian Nielsen with DLNR Aquatic Resources Division. Mr. Nielsen, the floor is yours. Please proceed.
Aloha, Chair Tarnas, committee members, Brian Nielsen, Administrator, Division of Aquatic Resources. We stand on our written testimony in support of this bill and available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's all the testimony we have, members. Any questions for Mr. Nielsen? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next measure. House Bill 1031, relating to the Hawaii Historic Places Review Board. We've received testimony and support from Alan Downer with DLNR State Historic Preservation Division. Dr. Downer, the floor is yours. Please proceed.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Alan Downer. I'm the Administrator of the State Historic Preservation Division. And the department stands on its written testimony in support of this measure. I'd be pleased to answer questions if there are any.
Thank you very much, Dr. Downer. And we received one other piece of testimony from Kirsten Faulkner with Historic Hawaii Foundation in opposition. That's all the testimony we've received, members. Do you have any questions for Dr. Downer? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next measure. Thank you very much. House Bill 865, 5 relating to the State Historic Preservation Division. We've received testimony in support from Kamakana Ferreira, Office of Hawaiian Affairs. Kamakana Ferreira with OHA, if you're there, please proceed.
Aloha, Chair Tarnas, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Kamakana Ferreira. I'm a lead compliance specialist with OHA, providing testimony in support of HB 865. We stand on our written testimony and would like to emphasize that we believe this could improve the well-being of the island burial councils and timeliness for care of iwi kupuna. I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we've received testimony providing comments from Dr. Downer with DLNR Shipty. Dr. Downer, please proceed.
Again, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, I'm Alan Downer, Administrator of the State Historic Preservation Division. The department stands on its written testimony in providing comments. Look forward to answering any questions there may be.
Thank you very much. Members, we've received testimony in support from Ka'aina Hull, Department of Planning, from Kirsten Faulkner, Historic Hawaii Foundation, and from Stephanie Sakamoto with BIA Hawaii. Members, that's all the testimony we have received on this measure. Do you have any questions for our testifiers today? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next measure. House Bill 663, relating to the Game Management Advisory Commission. On this measure, we've received testimony providing comments from DLNR, Mr. David Smith. Mr. Smith, if you're available, the floor is yours. Please proceed.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. David Smith, Administrator with the Division of Forestry and Wildlife. We submitted written testimony on this, offering comments, and we're available for answering any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, that's all the testimony we've received on this measure. Any questions for Mr. Smith? Representative Kobayashi.
For DLNR, is it hard to get people to serve on this commission?
It's yeah, it's a little cumbersome. Well, for one thing, this bill, I think it's saying that the legislators are gonna offer up lists of 9 names. I don't think we've ever had a list of 9 names. We're lucky if we can get 3 usually. And it's also, it requires that people be active in hunting organizations and that sort of thing, which is a barrier for entry. I think people could offer valuable insights without necessarily having that. But anyway, yeah, it's a bit of a challenge getting folks to serve, and it has been challenging. But I think we've gotten good people. We've got good people on the commission, so it's working.
Do you think that the Speaker of the House and the Senate President would be able to find 9 names each?
It's entirely possible. That hasn't been our experience, getting that kind of a response. We really have to kind of beat the bushes and look for people that we think would, be able to offer us constructive advice on the committee. And people are busy too. There's lots of good people out there, and folks are busy, and so it's hard to get people to serve on this particular commission. But we're working on it best we can. We have a good hunting program. We have a biologist on our staff that's in charge of our hunting program, and he works really hard on it, coordinates with them. And honestly, a lot of my efforts with the hunters is just one-to-one, face-to-face. Guys call me directly and whatnot. Ladies and gentlemen call me directly, and we talk, and we try to resolve any kind of issues that they have.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Representative Kobayashi. Representative Morikawa, please
Thank
go
you,
ahead.
Chair. Just a question for DLNR. Are these commission members, do they have to report their ethics information?
Yeah, honestly, I'm not that up on that, but I think all the commissioner, anybody serving on a commission now has to do all the ethics stuff. They have to do ethics training, and we encourage them now to do the Hawaiian law training. And I think they have to do some financial disclosures as well. So that's,
I think that's why many of them are not going past that application process, because when they hear how complicated it is and how much of their life they have to expose, they just don't follow through with it. And that's with any of those councils that we've set up. So
Yeah.
just a comment, thank you. I think we might still have problems. Thank you.
okay.
Thank you, Representative. Appreciate that. Any other questions for Mr. Smith? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the next measure. Thank you very much, David Smith. We're now moving on to House Bill 820, relating to public access. We have received no testimony, so we will move on, unless you have any questions of me. Okay. House Bill 1, Mr. Smith, sorry, did you have something? No, okay. Let's see, House Bill 135 is our next one, relating to trees. On this measure, we have received testimony from Mr. David Smith at DLNR, providing comments. Mr. Smith, the floor is yours.
Yeah, we submitted written testimony with comments. Really appreciate what this bill is trying to accomplish. I think it has issues and needs some work, but I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you very much for your nicely phrased comments. Next, we have received testimony with comments from the Department of Accounting and General Services, Kurt Otaguro. Mr. Otaguro, if you're available, the floor is yours.
Good morning, and thank you, Chair Tarnas, Vice Chair Branco, and members of the committee. My name is Joanne Shoko, and I am the DAGS Engineering Program Manager for the island of Hawaii, and representing the Comptroller, Kurt Otaguro, at this hearing. Excuse me. We stand on our written testimony, appreciating the intent of this bill and providing comments. I am available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, again, for your nicely phrased comments. Next, we have written testimony in support from Andrea Quinn. That's all the testimony we received on this measure. Members, do you have any questions for our testifiers? If not, we'll move on to the next measure. House Bill 1261, relating to the Department of Land and Natural Resources. First, we have written testimony providing comments from the Attorney General, Melissa Goldman, Deputy AG. Please refer to those comments in your packet, members. Someone, either Ms. Goldman or another person from Department of Attorney General, is here to provide oral testimony as well. Department of Attorney General, the floor is yours. Please proceed.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. This is Deputy Attorney General Melissa Goldman. The Attorney General's office respectfully requests that this committee hold the bill for reasons set forth in our written testimony, and I am available for comments or questions if there are any. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony providing comments from DLNR, Mr. Russell Suji. Mr. Suji, the floor is yours. Please proceed.
Good morning, Chair, members of the committee, Russell Suji for the department. We provided comments indicating that the property is currently under executive order to the Department of Education and a preservation community for leasing of the property. Subsequent to that, there was a phase 1 environmental done on the property, which indicates it has lead paint and that ought to be taken care of. Currently, as far as I understand, neither DOE or the Preservation Society has funding to take care of that problem. So right now, the property is still under executive order to the Department of Education. Typically, we do that, especially when we have land set aside for like 50 years, 60 years to an agency, and they want to return it back to us. We want to make sure that it's in pre-disposition condition, meaning it's in a condition that we gave it to the agency. And so that's why we require a phase 1. asking for remediation. I'm available for any comments, questions if you have any. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Suji. Next, we have written testimony in support from Kirsten Faulkner with the Historic Hawaii Foundation. We have a testifier here today from the Wailea Village Historic Preservation Community, who actually was unable to join us, sorry. Akiko Masuda provided us written testimony in support. We also have written testimony in support from other members of the Wailea Village Historic Preservation Community, Gary Wyckoff and Brad Kurokawa, and from Wai'ehu Land LLC, Kehaulani Lum, and from two individuals, Susan Forbes and Edward Toguchi. That's all the testimony we have received, members. Do any of you have questions for our testifiers on this measure? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next measure, House Bill 1332, relating to the Department of Land and Natural Resources. We have received testimony in opposition from DLNR. Russell Suji, the floor is yours. Please proceed.
Good morning, Chair, members of the committee. Russell Suji again. Together this morning, I have with me members from the Parks Division and the Forestry Division to comment also on trails, which is also under their respective divisions. I'll start off first off on the issue of the streams. As we stated in our testimony, we believe there is ample law on this area already, dividing the responsibilities. The department does the best it can under its limited resources and staffing. But generally speaking, as to streams, many people have the false impression that the state owns all streams, and that is not correct. Most of the times, streams are deed specific, where abutting property owners often own streams at least up until the middle of the stream, if not all the way across the stream. And the statutes provide that each individual owner, whether it's a private owner, state or county, ought to take care of their respective areas. And the state does the best it can with its resources that it does have. As to stream mouths and openings up at the ocean area, that is typically the responsibility of the county under 46-11.5. I'm available for questions. Now, that's the stream part. And now getting to the trails, the requirement that we maintain all of our trails. Again, the department does the best it can, but it has very limited resources. The bill calls for fuel tax to be used as the funding source, but we already receive, our Division of Forestry already receives fuel tax revenue and provides all of that revenue goes into the Na'ahele Trail program, which has very well-maintained trails, and Dofa can speak to it because I've heard it even has boardwalks on it. But there are also other areas on state unencumbered land and state lands where we got 1.3 million acres out there. People, a lot of illegal trails, a lot of people just go walking wherever they want, and we can't maintain that. It's just for various purposes and their liability purposes as well. But anyway, I do have members from Parks, if you want to hear from them, as well as DOFA, because they would be directly impacted by this bill as well as the land division. I'm available for questions if you have any. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Suji. We also have received written testimony and support from Cheryl B. That's all the testimony we received, members. Do you have any questions for DLNR? Representative Ganadin, please proceed.
Mr. Suji, good morning.
Morning.
I want to move the mic close.
Yeah, good morning. Let's see. I have the pleasure of representing District 30, which includes Kalihi Stream. There have been many issues about maintaining that stream. It abuts HPHA property as well as DOE property over the last few years. How would something like this rulemaking, interact with possible injection of funds with the new conservation corp that the Biden administration is discussing? Would it interact with that at all? Or would that be like an entirely separate program?
I'm not familiar with the Biden conservation program. Typically, we utilize for maintenance of streams whatever resources we have available, funding as well as staff. Again, the staffing is very limited, so oftentimes we contract the work out, and sometimes it involves heavy equipment. But again, like you pointed out in the stream areas, it can get very complicated because oftentimes there are various owners along the stream. I remember during the 46 days of rain up at when the Manoa flooding happened, that Manoa stream actually has everybody owning it. A lot of private parties, there are some state owners, and then county as well, and down to the UH area by Manoa. So
if I could add,
I don't know how you can fix it. We do have, again, in the statutes, basically saying the owners of the stream are supposed to take care as best as they can their kuleana, their area. Again, everybody I'm sure is strapped and might not have the resources to do so or the expertise. Yes.
It sounds like Chair Case is there to provide comments as well. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chair Thomas. Suzanne Case, Chair DLNR. Yes, if I could just add to your specific question, the Conservation Corps concept typically would help with management up in the forested areas in the Na'alahele Trail system to the extent that they are available. And I happen to be the governor's representative to the Kalihi Valley Neighborhood Board, so I'm quite familiar with the Kalihi streams, and I've actually sat down with neighborhood members with the Public Land Trust information system to map out where they have a problem, corner or stretch of the stream, to map out actually who owns on either side. And in the urban areas, a lot of it is the county, and then some of it, a good part of it is just privately owned by the adjacent landowners. The land division state has some jurisdiction up towards the top, and we've helped clear a little bit up there, but it is a whole mix of jurisdictions who are responsible for stream clearing along Kalihi Stream.
Thank you. Any other questions, members? Yes, Representative Kobayashi.
For DLNR, do you have any idea of the motivation behind this bill?
I do.
Oh.
Perhaps I could answer that question, Rep. Kobayashi. I did speak with the introducer of the bill, and this really came because of concerns in the Ahuimanu area along Huikelu Street. Apparently, state land there had been overgrown. DLNR came in maybe 2 years ago to clean it out, but they haven't been back since. And she was really hoping to try to get some more action on it and put this bill forward as a way to initiate discussion about this. I would urge her and the department to work together to try to address this concern in that particular area. But it's really something that each of us as representatives need to do in our own districts when we have state lands that are overgrown for one reason or the other. Knowing that the agency does not have the capacity to do everything, we need to identify where are the critical areas that perhaps are presenting some sort of wildfire risk or flooding risk or maybe a security risk. So that was the genesis and the motivation behind the bill. The representative from the area around Ahuimanu on Windward Oahu. And I don't know if DLNR would have any comment about that, but they would certainly, the representative would certainly welcome a collaborative problem-solving effort in her area.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that, Chair, and I'll certainly look into that. I'm not familiar with any Ahuimanu area streams that are under us, but we'll certainly take a look at that. And I would appreciate, if there are issues in the communities before putting in this kind of bill, it would help to call the division, and we can actually check and then see who has jurisdiction first of all, and then see if it's our responsibility, then what can we do to assist, if anything at all. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And collaboration between the legislative branch and the agency is the best way to accomplish a lot of these goals rather than doing legislation. So I will urge the introducer of the bill to follow through with you, Mr. Suji, and work to try to find a solution for their particular needs there. Thank you very much. Any other questions, members? Yes, Representative Morikawa.
Maybe more of a comment than a question, but I would like to commend the DLNR because on Kauai, it's very complex. The streams and the waterways and property owners and state might own something and have to go into a private property area, and there's liability issues. So they do, when I call for a complaint, they do check on it first, and then we determine who owns it, what can be done. Sometimes the county can step in and help on their side. So thank you, DLNR.
Thank you, Representative Morikawa. Any other comments or questions, members? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next measure. Thank you. House Bill 1021, relating to the Interstate Wildlife Violator Compact. On this measure, we have testimony in support from Jason Redula, DLNR. Mr. Redula, the floor is yours. Please proceed.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair and committee members. Jason Redula, DLNR's Enforcement Chief. The department will stand on its written testimony in strong support of this administration measure. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Redula. Next, we have received written testimony in support from the Hawaiian Humane Society, the Hawaii Reef and Ocean Coalition, Friends of Hanauma Bay, and we also have testimony providing oral testimony from Inga Gibson with For the Fishes. Ms. Gibson, the floor is yours.
Mahalo, Chair, Vice Chair, committee members. Strong support. Just want to remind the committee that this bill is the Wildlife Compact is modeled after the highly successful driver's license compact. So this is not a novel concept. Hawaii is one of only a few states that has yet to become a formal member. So we hope that this is the year that Hawaii can participate and also aid in DOCARE's enforcement efforts in order to access information regarding those who may have offended, including poaching violations in other states. So strong support. Mahalo.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gibson. Any questions for our testifiers, members? Representative Kobayashi.
Couldn't DLNR voluntarily enter into some sort of agreement?
Mr. Redula, could you respond to that?
Yes, thank you. As far as we know at this point, we do require statutory permission, which is why we need this bill to be passed.
Okay, thanks.
Are there other testifiers on this measure? Ms. Lisa Bishop, you're with the Friends of Hanauma Bay. I understand that you are with us today to provide oral testimony. Ms. Bishop, please proceed. Maybe if you are there and you could unmute yourself, you could provide your testimony.
Thank you. That helps. Thanks. Thank you, Rep. Tarnas. I just wanted to stand on our very strong support of this bill. This is so important and will really help support the well-being of all of our wildlife in Hawaii. So thank you very much for allowing me to provide the testimony.
Certainly. Thank you, Ms. Bishop. Appreciate your good work and strong affirmation of your written testimony. Okay, so that's all of the testimony we have, members. Any further questions for our testifiers? Seeing none, we will move on now to House Bill 1346 relating to.
Okay.
Yeah, if you could mute, thank you. House Bill 1346 relating to food sustainability. On this measure, we have testimony in support testimony providing comments from Danielle Bass, Office of Planning. Ms. Bass, the floor is yours. Please proceed.
Aloha and good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Danielle Bass. I'm the State of Hawaii Sustainability Coordinator representing the Office of Planning's testimony here today. The Office of Planning supports the intent of this measure, and we offer comments and amendments to improve this measure. First, the Office of Planning recommends that the most appropriate functional plan to integrate wild seafood sustainability is in fact the State Agricultural Functional Plan. We recognize that the State Agricultural Functional Plan was last updated in 1991. And this functional plan would benefit from an update sought by this legislation. We also recommend including language to also include, among other, economic updates. We recognize over the last 30 years, there have been many transitions in the agricultural economy locally in Hawaii. So we do offer those amendments. Finally, it will likely take longer than 6 months to update a 30-year-old functional plan. So the Office of Planning actually recommends the extension of the submission of this plan by 1 year. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. I'm available for any questions. Mahalo.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony providing comments from the Department of Agriculture. Will the representative from the Department of Agriculture please proceed with your testimony?
Good morning, Chair Thomas. Morris Sata on behalf of the Department of Agriculture. The department will stand on its written testimony offering comments, but we do want to note we appreciate Office of Planning's recommendations regarding updating the agriculture functional plan. However, that was an effort that took nearly 10 years to complete and get approval for. And we believe the timeframe suggested, even with the additional extension, will not be sufficient to be able to, for us to be able to meet that deadline. So we express concerns over the time frame that is being proposed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have received written testimony in support from John Kaneko, Hawaii Seafood Council, from Phil Fernandez, Hawaii Fishermen's Alliance for Conservation and Tradition, and from Andrea Quinn. We also have received written testimony in support from Stephanie Sakamoto, who represents Fishing Tales with Mike Sakamoto. Okay, that's all the testimony we've received, members. Do you have any questions for our testifiers?
Becoming a bag, I guess.
Representative Morikawa.
Thank you. I mean, I understand that your expertise in the fishing industry may not be there. Why, and I'm missing something, why doesn't DLNR have a part of this? Would you know? Is he gone?
Morris Atta or Danielle Bass. Would one of you like to take the question why Division of Aquatic Resources was not assigned this bill and part of this discussion?
For the Department of Ag, I'm not certain, because we point out in our testimony that one of the main concerns was that, we do not have a jurisdiction. Also, there's a federal element in this that would probably, sorry, that this measure could benefit from. So we're not certain why those elements were not included in this discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Atta. Danielle Bass, would you have any comments?
I think at least for the Office of Planning's testimony and discussing, when you take a look at section 226-55, which was recently updated in about 2016, 2017, regarding the update of functional plans. When you take a look at the agricultural functional plan, that would be, of course, the Department of Agriculture would be, of course, the state lead agency. What that update actually does is the lead agency can work with an advisory board and commission. So that is where the Office of Planning believes the DLNR and other stakeholders, as well as the fishing stakeholders and other agricultural stakeholders, can participate and assist the Department of Agriculture on the update of the respective agricultural functional plan.
Thank you.
Any other questions, members? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the next measure. House Bill 1274 relating to sport fish. On this measure, we have testimony providing comments from Brian Nielsen, DLNR Aquatic Resources. Mr. Nielsen, please proceed.
Aloha, Chair, committee members. We stand on our written testimony, appreciating the intent and providing some comments for consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony from Department of Agriculture. Mr. Atta, please proceed.
Good morning, Chair and committee members. The department will stand on its written testimony offering comments. Thank you.
Thank you. We have written testimony in support from several members of Hawaii Freshwater Fishing Association. Paul Lacerdo, Kevin Hirokane, Clinton Dingle, and then we have testimony in support from the Wahiawa Community-Based Development Organization, Darren Uesugi, and also testimony in support from Howard Araki and Timothy Ng. And we have testimony in opposition from Christy Martin with the Coordinating Group on Alien Pest Species. Christy Martin, if you're available, please proceed.
Yes, mahalo, Chair Tarnas, members of the committee. Thank you so much for hearing this. I guess maybe I should have clicked comments. You know, there's already a process for requesting species be listed or being able to be imported, especially if for non-domestic animals such as these fish. It's with the Department of Agriculture, and people can petition to have certain species listed for importation, either for research or for general aquaculture or even restocking like this. That process goes to a subcommittee, and the subcommittee can look at risk. They'll look at risk assessments. They'll also look at benefits. And it is through that process that any sort of importation should be directed, and not through this legislative process that doesn't include a risk assessment. Mahalo.
Thank you very much, Ms. Martin. Members, that's all the testimony we have received on this measure. Do you have any questions for our testifiers? Representative Kobayashi.
For DLNR, is DLNR responsible for stocking or restocking the Wahiawa reservoir or whatever is out there?
Yeah, so DLNR does partner with fishing groups, and there is a little hatchery there for stocking the reservoir. So yeah, we do have some responsibility there and partnerships in stocking the reservoir.
So you were the agency that originally stocked the reservoir, Wahiawa Reservoir.
I believe so. I know they were stocked, decades ago. I think we were considered fish and game back then, but I believe that is correct.
I see. Have you been approached by someone or people to restock with these particular species?
Yeah, so Division of Aquatic Resources has been working with the folks that do the stocking there, and have been trying to work through some issues with population decline of some of the popular game fish like the bass included in this bill, and there's a variety of different issues that we think are impacting the population, and bringing in some fresh genetic stock was identified as one possible way to try to address the issues with the population. We don't see that it's a big risk for Wahiawa, since these species already exist in the reservoir, but we certainly wouldn't want to see these species introduced to other water bodies, and we certainly wouldn't want to circumvent any of Department of Ag's existing permitting process.
I'm sorry. The Wahiawa Reservoir currently has the northern largemouth bass and also the butterfly peacock bass.
Yes, that's correct. So that's why we're not concerned about stocking it, with getting some new genes. The existing populations have been there for decades. There's probably inbreeding, going on. So they want some fresh genes with the same species introduced. So we see little risk in stocking the same species to that particular water body, but we certainly wouldn't want to introduce them to any other water body.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, members? Vice Chair Bronco, please proceed.
Thank you. This is for GLNR. I had a question. These two fish species, do they compete with any native species that may be in the water body currently?
So they, are high risk for competing with native species in other water bodies. Whether they compete with native species in Wahiawa, I mean, honestly, there's so many different exotic species in Wahiawa. I don't think many native species are left, and this is just from decades of stocking. So I guess I don't see a large impact in Wahiawa that doesn't already exist, but certainly going to more pristine systems that are, have healthy indigenous populations, that's where we'd really have concerns.
Thank you. Any other questions, members? And yes, Representative Ganadin, please proceed.
Hi, to DLNR. Does the department get any revenue from this sport fishing? So we were hearing in an earlier hearing about fishing licenses, the expansion of those. We went back and forth with that. Could this be a revenue generator for the department? Because people are already fishing there. They've been doing it for it's like over 120 years.
Yeah, thank you for that question. So we do have a freshwater game fishing license. I believe it's $5 for an annual license. And then those license revenues are able to be matched by the Fish and Wildlife Service Sport Fish Restoration Fund 3-to-1. So it is a revenue generator. Whether we're going to see an increase after more bass are stocked into Wahiawa, I kind of doubt it, but it does generate revenue to support the program.
Thank you. Any other questions, members? And just for the education of those who may be watching this, could you explain, Mr. Nielsen, how this reservoir is not connected to other streams and things that might allow for the escape of these species?
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, this is an isolated reservoir. There's a dam that controls the exit water flow. So it's not connected to a whole network of native streams that we'd see an impact from further introductions.
Thank you. Appreciate that brief geography lesson. Yes, Representative Morikawa.
Just a clarification though, where does the spillway go to? The overflow in an extreme flood, if it overflows, where does that water go to? Does it go down to the Haleiwa Wailua area?
That's a good question. Maybe David Sakota, my program manager that's also online, he might be able to answer that question.
Sorry, I don't know, but we can get back to you on that.
Yeah, I think I took a tour of it and I think that's what was said. And if that's the case, we have to really be mindful of what species are in those downstream. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for those questions, members. Any other questions? If not, let's move on to our last measure of the day in this hearing, House Bill 553, relating to the protection of sharks. On this measure, we have written testimony and support from the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. We have testimony providing comments from the University of Hawaii. We have several individuals, Ryan Bowen, Judy Lemus, and Kim Holland. Whoever is the chosen representative from UH, please proceed.
Hi, Chairman. This is Brian Bowen from Hawaii Institute of Marine Biology. As far as regulating shark fisheries in Hawaii, we are blessed with a healthy shark population. Nowhere else in the world is there a population of 1.3 million people, and right adjacent to it, healthy shark populations. And that's because of the Amakua system, the wisdom of our predecessors. So, the greatest conservation challenges for sharks are finning, which we have already prohibited, and gill nets, which are largely controlled. To our knowledge, there really is not a directed fishery towards sharks. And so this bill is unnecessary in our view. However, if our friends at DLNR and elsewhere feel that this bill is necessary out of an abundance of caution, then we ask that the research that the university does, which is already heavily regulated, is exempt from this bill. We have an institutional animal care and use committee, which contains members of the community, veterinarians, all sorts of experts that vet our research before we can touch an animal. So given that level of regulation, we ask that the scientific research at the university be exempt from this bill should it proceed. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm available for questions.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony in support from DLNR. Mr. Brian Nielsen, please proceed.
Aloha, Chair, committee members. We stand on our written testimony in support of this measure, available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have testimony providing comments from the Attorney General. I'll refer members to the written testimony for their comments. Next, we have testimony in support from Lisa Bishop with Friends of Hanauma Bay. Ms. Bishop, please proceed.
Thank you, Representative Tarnas. Friends of Hanauma Bay stands on our testimony in strong support of this bill. Thank you for the opportunity to do so. Mahalo.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony in support from Max Phillips with the Center for Biological Diversity. Mr. Phillips is not available, but you please refer to the written testimony. We have testimony in opposition from Jody Bright, Hawaii Marlin Tournament Series. Testimony in support from the Humane Society of the U.S., Lindsay Verhelig. Testimony in support from Hawaii Reef and Ocean Coalition. Testimony in opposition from Phil Fernandez, Hawaii Fishermen's Alliance for Conservation and Tradition. Testimony in support from Mike Nakachi. Mr. Nakachi, the floor is yours. Please proceed. Mr. Nakachi is not able to be with us today. Please refer to his testimony, members. Next, we have testimony, written testimony in support from Kathy Gogol, Animal Rights Hawaii. Also in support from Save the Sea Turtles International, Juan Oliphant. And testimony in opposition from Julia Harthold, UHIMB. Testimony in support from Janice Palma Glenny, surf rider, Kona chapter. Testimony from numerous individuals, both in support and opposition. And we have, I'll go through those who have written testimony in support from Kaikea Nakachi, Diane Ware, Andrea Quinn. Testimony in opposition from Clayton Kubo. Mr. Kubo, if you're available, please proceed. Go ahead, Mr. Kubo, if you could. Can we hear you?
Okay, how's it going?
Go ahead, I hear you now. Oh, no, try unmute.
How's it going?
Good, good. Now go ahead.
Okay, Clayton Kubo, Waimea Kauai. In opposition, I was taught that I could eat sharks, use sharks for bait, and if this measure continues, and if this measure continues and becomes law, I can see a lot of people, senior citizen on the Waimea landing, either going to get one citation or be arrested for killing sharks for bait, because they use the shark bait for catching other food source. Yeah. And then bottom line is, I understand that in this measure that it says about the native Hawaiians. So I get one question for all of you. Where do I fit in when it comes down to that? I was born over here in Hawaii, raised in Hawaii, but I do not have a drop of Hawaiian blood. So that is my question to you guys. Mahalo, Rep. Tarnas, and all our other representatives. Have a good day.
Thank you, Mr. Kubo. We have testimony in support from Ocean Ramsey. Ms. Ramsey, if you're available. No, Mrs. Ramsey is not there. So please refer to her written testimony in support. We have testimony in support from Hannah Kihalani Springer, testimony in support from Nadine Lane, testimony in opposition from Carl Meyer, testimony in support from Alohi Nakachi, testimony in support from Inga Gibson. Ms. Gibson, please proceed.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, committee members. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Many of you know that we have been working on this measure for years. The bill is modeled after a rate protection bill that was actually enacted in 2019. So the language is parallel to that same language that was adopted in the state ledge there in 2019. I did have a chance to go through some of the testimony, and there seems to be some confusion. In drafting the bill, we intentionally included the highest mens rea, the highest state of mind, knowingly. So this bill is in no way meant to target those ethical fishers who, in the course of lawful fishing, accidentally capture a shark and release the shark. That's exactly what ethical fishers do now, and that's what we want to continue to see them do. So I just wanted to clarify that this absolutely does not impact legitimate fishing practices. I would also defer to DoCare if they could give any additional assurance to fishers. We also removed some language earlier that was problematic, such as possession and abuse, and that's why it is limited now to capture, entangle, knowingly kill. Regarding the researchers, we have for years reached out to them and tried to find a compromise. Unfortunately, we're kind of back to where I was back in 2010 when I helped to enact the shark fin bill. The researchers opposed the shark fin bill, the landmark shark fin bill, because of the same concerns that they're presenting today about how this may hinder their research. I know that OHA and a lot of those from the Native Hawaiian community have worked with HIMB, worked with others. I have myself reached out to them. It appears that they not only want not to have to comply with existing special activity permit requirements, but they want a blanket exemption. Regarding Dr. Bowen's reference to an IACUC is basically an animal care and use committee that's present at any university. So that in itself is not enough and does not include addressing concerns from the Native Hawaiian community. There is no cultural component of the IACUC. So, we strongly support this bill. I'm sure you all have seen the recent studies just last month out of Nature. We're looking at a 71% decline in oceanic pelagic shark species. 3/4 of those species are threatened with potential extinction. Of course, sharks don't know boundaries. They don't know within 3 nautical miles or the EEZ. And so this is really the next step in protecting sharks that we know are so important to our ecosystem as apex predators, and also important to Native Hawaiian communities. So just really urge your support. We will continue to work with the research community and hope that the committee will pass this out favorably. Mahalo.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony in opposition from Kim Holland. Dr. Holland, the floor is yours. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chair. I will stand on this testimony that I presented, but I'd also like to rebut some of the things that, some of the testimony that has just been presented.
If you can make sure focus on the bill, that'd be great.
Yes, thank you. There is very low level of intentional shark fishing in Hawaii. The majority of intentional shark fishing in Hawaii is catch and release. The only other group that would be really affected by this are legitimate researchers such as myself and others. And the kind of research that we do is absolutely crucial to the conservation and preservation of sharks. We are conservationists too. I would give you one small example, sir. We tagged a tiger shark off of Honolulu Airport, which was recaptured by a fisherman in Mexico. Researchers in California and Mexico have tagged great white sharks with pingers, which we have detected with our equipment here in Hawaii, for instance, right off of Magic Island. So these kinds of insights are reliant on modern science, and modern science will be impacted if there are not specific provisions in this bill to allow us to go forward. And I would also contest the fact that we have been consulted on these bills. None of the research groups that I'm involved with have been at all consulted prior to the forming of these measures. So I'd be quite happy to take any questions if you have any, sir. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next, we have received written testimony in opposition from Randy Cates, in opposition from Darren Verbeck, written testimony in opposition from Molly Scott, opposition from Melanie Hutchinson, opposition from Paige Wernley, opposition from Nick Whitney, opposition from Larry O'Brien, opposition from Patty Peters, testimony in support from Ku'ule Keakealani, testimony in opposition from Steve Kaiser, testimony in support from Megan Lamson Leatherman, testimony in opposition from Mark Royer, testimony in opposition from Jeff Stark, testimony in support from Paul Fries, in support from Mary True, and in support from Ryan Christopher. Members, that's all the testimony that we have received on this measure. Do you have any questions? Representative Ganadin, please proceed.
Trying to find an appropriate recipient to this question. Maybe to the department. So, good morning. At the risk of sounding foolish, I'm looking at page 2, the kind of I think the most critical language here. Line 12, whether alive or dead, or except as provided in subsection E or as otherwise provided by law, no person shall knowingly capture or entangle any shark, whether alive or dead, or kill any shark. Let's say you catch a shark by accident, you're fishing for something else. If you let it die on your boat or on the beach, are you in violation of the law?
So yeah, that's a very good question. And you know, if this bill was to pass, we would want to define that language through our rulemaking process to make sure that unintentional take, you know, is not a violation of the law. I mean, if you have a hook with bait on it and you're fishing, you know, you may catch a shark. We want to make sure that those people are not in violation. So we would need to define what, you know, what knowingly capturing and harassing a shark is either in the bill, or we would need to do that through rulemaking.
Okay, so to be clear, you're not telling people to put their hands in the mouth of a living shark to take a hook out?
Absolutely not. Yeah, we don't want to put people at danger, and we also don't want to put fishers you know, in a situation where they could be in violation just for trying to catch food.
We're going to need a bigger boat. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Other questions, members? Representative Morikawa.
Thank you, Chair, for DLNR. I mean, I understand, I have Hawaiian blood, so I understand where Mr. Kubo is coming from. I mean, my family, Amakua is the shark. However, that didn't mean that we were hands off. It meant that they would also provide food for us, or any other reason that the shark could help us sustain, right? But now for other races that are not protected for cultural reasons or what have you, they do catch the shark in Waimea for bait, because then they're able to catch the akuli, halalulu. That is my problem with this bill, is these are small people that are doing it to put food on the table. Is there any way that that can be carved out of this, because they are actually using it for a good purpose?
Yeah, I think that is a challenge with this bill. I think the heart of this bill that, you know, people are trying to get at is there have been some just really terrible incidents of inhumane treatment of sharks, mutilation of sharks, and then also, you know, what we call wanton waste of sharks, you know, just killing a shark and then just laying it on the shoreline or disposing of it, not utilizing the animal. I think, you know, that's the real heart of this bill that we're trying to address. But we have heard from fishers that they eat sharks, they use them for bait. And so how do you balance that in with protecting these important species that are a critical part of the ecosystem, but also trying to issue of just wanton waste and cruelty to animals. So I think that's a difficult balance to reach, that I think we're all struggling with this bill.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Vice Chair Bronco, please proceed.
Questions for GLNR for Mr. Nilsson. Just to have on the record, I receive phone calls many from the Native Hawaiian community to make sure their traditional rights and practices. As you know, Native Hawaiians use sharks for the skin, for pahu drums, as well as the teeth to build niho oki. But I just wanted to make sure and just have on the record that this bill would not affect their traditional fishing rights.
I think all fishing regulations, allow for cultural and traditional practices to occur. And I've heard the same thing, that sharks are harvested for cultural practices, as well as for food sometimes. And so we certainly wouldn't want to restrict those activities, but at the same time, we wouldn't want it in statute that the department can't make regulations in the future to help protect sharks if a population crashes or something like that. We wouldn't want it in statute that we have no ability to manage shark populations in the state, but we absolutely support cultural and traditional practices.
Thank you. Other questions, members? Seeing none, that completes our agenda of all the bills today. We're going to recess Reconvening for decision-making on our bills we have before us today. Thank you, members, for being here for this very good hearing. Heard lots of very good bills. We're moving through bills that the department has been trying to get approved for years. Cleanup, these are housekeeping measures, a lot of these. So I'm glad we're able to move them out and hopefully we can get them across the finish line. Okay, first, House Bill 1028. My recommendation is to pass as is. Any discussion, members? Seeing none, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
The recommendation of the chair is to pass House Bill 1028 as is. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Representative Gandhi.
Aye.
Representative Kobayashi.
Aye.
Representative Kong.
Aye.
Representative Morikawa.
Aye.
Noting the excused absence of Representative Ono. Representative McDermott.
Yes.
The measure passes.
Thank you. Next bill, House Bill 1029, relating to living park planning councils. My recommendation is to pass as is. Discussion, members. Seeing none, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
The recommendation of the chair is to pass House Bill 1029 as is, noting the excused absence of Representative Ono. Is there any reservations? Any no votes? The measure passes.
Thank you. Moving on, House Bill 1030, relating to aquatic life and wildlife advisory committees. My recommendation is to make technical non-substantive amendments, pass out on HD1. Any discussion, members? Seeing none, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
The recommendation of the chair is to pass House Bill 1030 with amendments, noting the excused absence of Representative Ono. Is there any reservations? Any no votes? The measure passes.
Thank you. Next bill, 1031, relating to the Hawaii Historic Places Review Board. Recommendation is to pass as is. Discussion, members. Seeing none, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
The recommendation of the chair is to pass House Bill 1031 as is, noting the excused absence of Representative Ono. Is there any reservations? Any no votes? The measure passes.
Thank you. Next measure, let's see, House Bill 865, relating to the State Historic Preservation Division. My recommendation is to defect the effective date and make some amendments to address the concerns in Shifty's testimony, specifically saying that, and where we have under number 2, instead of staff response time to inquiries, it would be an evaluation of whether the review and response to submittals is completed within the timeframes established by rule. So it's very specific about what the auditor would look for. In number 5, page 2, I would delete end policies because they're not the ones that do that. That's actually OEQC that does that. And then I would defect the effective date January 1, 2050. So those would address the concerns from Shifty. That's my recommendation for an HD1. Discussion, members. Seeing none, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
The recommendation of the chair is to pass House Bill 865 with amendments, noting the excused absence of Representative Ono. Is there any reservations? Any no votes? The measure passes.
Thank you. Moving on, House Bill 663, relating to the Game Management Advisory Commission. I'd like to defect the effective date and pass it out as an HD1. Discussion, members. Seeing none, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
The recommendation of the chair is to pass 663 with amendments, noting the excused absence of Representative Ono. Is there any reservations? Any no votes? The measure passes.
Thank you. Next measure, House Bill 820. Members, we received no testimony on this. It's obviously not ripe for action. We will defer this measure. If it moves, a companion moves out of the Senate and comes over, we'll consider it then. Next bill, House Bill 135. Well-intentioned bill, but not ready for prime time. So I will recommend to defer this measure. Next bill, House Bill 1261, recognizing the concerns from the Attorney General, but I would like to continue the discussion on this. I want to defect the effective date and pass out an HD1 and encourage the DOE and the Wailea Village Historic Preservation Community to work together and work with DLNR to try to figure out a path forward on their project there. So I would like to move the bill forward to continue discussion on this. So just to defect the effective date as an HD1. Discussion members. Yes, Representative Kobayashi.
What about the dollar amount per year rent?
We can blank it out.
Blank?
Let's blank it out.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, good point. Okay, so defect the effective date and blank out the actual dollar amount. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
The recommendation of the chair is to pass House Bill number 1261 with amendments, noting the excused absence of Representative Ono. Is there any reservations? Any no votes? The measure passes.
Thank you. House Bill 1332, I'd like to defer this measure and urge each of us as representatives to work with DLNR to address any concerns that we have for state land adjacent to our communities, including trails and streams and any other state land, so that we can maintain it, so that don't provide any wildfire risk or flooding risk or security risk. But this bill, I think, is not going to achieve that objective, so we're going to defer it. Next bill, House Bill 1021, relating to the Interstate Wildlife Violator Compact. I would like to pass this bill out as is. Any discussion, members? Seeing none, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
The recommendation of the chair is to pass House Bill number 1021 as is, noting the excused absence of Representative Ono. Is there any reservations? Any no votes? The measure passes.
Thank you. House Bill 1346. My recommendation is to defect the effective date. I'd like to adopt the amendments that were proposed by the Office of Planning and continue this discussion. I'm surprised that the agriculture functional plan has not been updated for so long. And if nothing else, this bill will continue that discussion. I do urge OP and DOA and DAR to start talking about this, because it's high time we start working on it. So to continue the discussion, I'd like to move this bill forward, defect the effective date, adopt amendments from the Office of Planning, pass it out as an HD1. Discussion, members. Seeing none, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
The recommendation of the chair is to pass House Bill 1346 with amendments, noting the excused absence of Representative Ono. Is there any reservations? Any no votes? The measure passes.
Thank you very much. I would like to now move on to the next one, House Bill 1274. Let's make some technical non-substantive amendments, defect the effective date to January 1st, 2050. I'd like to delete section 2, because we really should use the appropriate process through the Department of Ag to import any species that's not here. And I would also like to address DLNR's concerns by removing the phrase "through its own resources" and add a statement that DLNR will apply to the Department of Agriculture for a permit to import the northern largemouth bass. So the DLNR will actually be doing the permit application, but the remaining language in the bill would allow DLNR to work with the local fishing association in partnership, so that the fishing association could cover the cost for importing the fish itself, and DLNR would maintain control over that area. And so this would help to meet what I think is a very important recreational fishery in that area, and the one recreational fishery that is under a license program, the freshwater fishing license. So HD1 with those amendments. Any discussion, members? Seeing none, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
The recommendation of the chair is to pass House Bill number 1274 with amendments, noting the excused absence of Representative Ono. Is there any reservations? Any no votes? The measure passes.
Thank you. Now, the last measure, House Bill 553. Thank you very much for that very educational discussion in hearing our testimony today. I would like to pass this out with an HD1, defect the effective date, make some technical non-substantive amendments, adopt the Attorney General's amendment. I'd like to adopt the University of Hawaii's amendment. And then I would like to make amendments to address the concerns that are brought up by numerous testifiers to ensure that that this would still allow for take of shark for subsistence fishing purposes, and as well as for traditional and customary practices. And so to achieve those goals, on page 3, under E1, I would add the words or to research overseen by a state-approved institutional animal care and use committee as recommended by UH. I would like to add 2 more sections under this so that there would be, this section shall not apply to any person who captures or kills sharks for subsistence fishing purposes. And another section, or not another section, but another part that says this section shall not apply to any person who incidentally takes sharks while targeting other species. And then I want to add a paragraph, probably after F and before G, that says the department shall promulgate rules through the Chapter 91 rulemaking process to implement this measure to ensure that the incidental take of shark while targeting other species is not a violation, to prevent wanton waste of sharks, to limit gear such as gill nets in areas identified as shark nursery habitats, and to allow take of sharks for subsistence purposes subject to reasonable regulation by the state for protection of shark species. I hope members that will allow us to protect shark species while also allowing for incidental take and for subsistence fishing purposes and for traditional and customary practices. That's my recommendation, members. Any discussion? Representative Kobayashi.
Defective date?
Yes, I will defect the effective date and make some other technical non-substantive amendments.
A comment, thank you.
Yes,
Chair, for
Representative
those-
Morikawa.
Thank you for those amendments, because we've been at this bill for many, many years, and I think maybe this time we have a compromise that will help everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Other discussion? Seeing none, Representative Bronco, please take the vote.
The recommendation of the chair is to pass House Bill number 553 with amendments, noting the excused absence of Representative Ono. Is there any reservations? Any no votes? No vote. No vote from Representative Kong. The measure passes.
Thank you very much. There being no further measures before us, our meeting is now adjourned.